The year was 1957, in the midst of the Cold War between the United States of America and the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. Both were superpowers, two of the most powerful nations in the world and both with access to nuclear weaponry. These high stakes forced the countries into a stalemate, until the USSR suddenly added an entirely new layer to the arms race. On October 4, 1957, the USSR launched the first artificial satellite, Sputnik. It was a relatively small device, being the size of a beach ball and weighing only 83.6 kilograms. With its 4 antennas, Sputnik recorded data and transmitted signals back to Earth about the density of the upper atmosphere. Back in the United States, this new development was incredibly worrying. If the Soviet Union could send a metal object into orbit, who was to say that nuclear warheads wouldn't come next? It was time for the United States to respond, so in 1958 Dwight D. Eisenhower signed the National Aeronautics and Space Act. On October 1 of that same year, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration began operations. The United States needed to catch up with the Soviet Union, so later that year NASA launched Explorer 1, America's first strong step in the space race. From there the contest continued, a constant game of firsts, a game that the United States, unfortunately, was sorely losing. Each new advancement was made by the USSR. America was close behind, but that was not enough. Eager to finally surpass their adversary in the space race, the United States decided to set their sights on the Moon.
I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal, before this decade is out, of landing a man on the Moon and returning him safely to the Earth. No single space project in this period will be more impressive to mankind or more important for the long-range exploration of space, and none will be so difficult or expensive to accomplish.
The goal was set, and Project Apollo was put into action. Although the first mission ended in tragedy after a fire wiped out its crew, subsequent test flights showed steady progress until finally, on July 16, 1969, NASA was ready to launch the Apollo 11 mission, the first manned mission to land on the Moon. After 3 days, astronauts Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins entered orbit around the Moon. The next day, Armstrong and Aldrin left on the lunar module Eagle and successfully touched down on the surface of the Moon.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
This was the United States' claim to victory in the space race and is to this day seen as the decisive end. America's voyage into space was not finished there, however. NASA continued on with 6 more missions to Earth's natural satellite and proceeded to place increasingly advanced artificial satellites, like the Hubble Space Telescope. This telescope was the first of its kind, a major optical instrument that had been placed in space to be accessed remotely from Earth. It was launched on April 24, 1990, weighing in at over 10,000 kilograms and measuring over 13 meters long. Ever since its launch, it has been collecting terabytes of data about the observable universe. Following that was the International Space Station, a cooperative effort between the United States and Russia. It is the world's largest and most expensive projects in space to date, costing about $150 billion and taking around 15 years to build. To this day, astronauts and cosmonauts are still being sent to work on this laboratory in space. Recently, although NASA still records and documents deep space, manned missions have ceased in the United States. This may change soon, though, as scientists are looking towards a new goal, putting a man on Mars.